Hello and welcome back to the channel. I recently made a community poll asking what variant piece I should play with next. And yeah, today I'm finding out how many Martins I need to beat Fairy Stockfish. Martin moves one square in any direction, and I'll add one extra Martin each game. Let's get started with game number 1. Okay, game number 1, here we have Martin on the board, and I will throw him directly into the jaws of the enemy. He is a relatively weak piece, which in my head made a lot of sense since he is literally the weakest chess.com bot. That's exactly what he's known for. So there's not much that we'll be able to do with just a single Martin on the board. But because Martin moves sort of like a king, oh, we're already in check, I'm kind of hoping that when I have a couple more of him on the board, maybe several dozen, I can sort of swarm the enemy with all of my Martins, and they can all sort of support each other like some sort of big Martin brotherhood. But for the time being, we are getting absolutely harassed in the middle of the board. I will continue to advance. D5 controls the center. It's just me and my Martin doing our best to hold down the fort, but really to not much success. It's starting to move very quickly, so I'm assuming it's already calculated a forced mate. Oh wow, that's disgusting. I feel like half of the novelty of these videos is obviously the piece itself, but the other half is the fact that Stockfish, or rather Fairy Stockfish, does the most obscene plays I've ever seen in my life. So in this case, the king can literally move nowhere. The king is trapped. There's no legal moves for the king. If I click on him, you'll see there's nowhere I can move him. So I have to move Martin. And the interesting thing is that Martin is zugzwanged right now. There's nowhere safe for Martin to move. Everything is defended by one of Black's pieces. So I'm being forced to sacrifice guillotine my only Martin that I have on the board. I'll go ahead and sneak him back to D2. Wow, okay. And it doesn't even take, it just mates me on D4. With that, we do lose with one Martin. I'm actually going to go ahead and slap down 6 more Martins. Okay, my fraternity of Martins has increased 7-fold, I guess, which looks a lot better, but to be totally honest, my only choice is to have them sort of crawl forward like slugs, and hopefully they defend each other in such a way that eventually I can power through Stockfish's position. And to be totally frank, with a total of 7 Martins, I'm not totally sure that's possible quite yet. Alright, Fairy Stockfish immediately grabs control of the center, a very prickly sort of setup that it's going to be difficult to power through without just losing a Martin. And to be frank, even though I do have 7 in total, that's not really enough to just go around handing out free Martins. Wow, it's just pushing the pawns even further. I mean, this does kind of seem to create some holes in the position, so I'll at least try to take advantage of that. Oh, D4. Okay, interesting. Actually, it's just occurred to me as well that should Fairy Stockfish play almost like a beginner and just push all of its pawns, there's literally no way for me to penetrate the position because Martins only move 1 square at a time, so they have to basically walk into oncoming traffic, which is not ideal. But I'll take advantage of this newly found weakness and just slide right by sneakily. We do get bishop to e6. I guess we weren't quite as sneaky as I thought. Oh, and I can't retreat. The pawn covers c3, d3 is covered, d4 is defended, the bishop covers this diagonal, this bishop covers this diagonal, and the only safe square is for this lone Martin to advance up to b5. We get queen to g5, which does threaten this Martin, but none of the others. All of the others defend each other. I think it's cool that just having a Martin next to another Martin guarantees both of their safety. So anyways, this guy I do have to defend. We'll slide him back to a4. Okay, b5, I think I've made a grave error in launching this guy out all by himself. If I advance him to a5, knight c6 simply traps it, or I guess I could push again, and then bishop c8 would trap my Martin. Oh, but I have no choice, because if I move back, then I'm under fire by one of the 2 bishops. Okay, so we'll try Martin up to a5. We do in fact get knight to c6. There's only 1 safe square on the board, b5 being defended by the queen. And okay, on the bright side, we saw their threat. The downside is Martin is toast. So I guess we do have to sacrifice him. Might as well go ahead and take this pawn. Yeah, and the problem is we're just getting held down by this little wall of pawns, literally just 2 pawns. But again, Martins only move 1 square at a time, so there's really no way for me to break through. I'm kind of just holding on for dear life until I get squashed. Oh, here comes the bishop pinning one of my Martins. We'll just try and cover up the king as best we can. And here come the pawns. We already know how this goes. It's probably just going to promote and then fumigate my back rank of Martins. You know, it's really bad when Fairy Stockfish has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces on your position, and you only have 6 Martins to your name. Right, it can take... Oh, of course it can take. This Martin is pinned, and this Martin is pinned as well. And with that, beautiful bishop mate on d2, taking advantage of this pinned martin and this queen covering e2. We do lose with 7 martins. I'll go ahead and just tack on an entire extra row of martins. All right, we now have 15 martins to our name. So again, the only way we win this is if they all crawl towards the middle of the board and overpower Stockfish's position before it has time to develop. So I'm really not going to overthink this. I'm just going to start throwing martins in that general direction. I really can't imagine that being precise about this martin or this martin first or second will really make that much of a difference. Right, here come the pointy pawns again. And we are just going to throw all of our martins in its face. All right, our first sacrifice here, we've lost one of our martins. We've lost 2 of our martins, but we will continue to advance. And it's doing actually what I talked about, I think, in the first game, which is that it can literally just throw all of its pawns in our face. And again, martins only move 1 square at a time, so there's not really much we can do about it. After making the how many Amazons does it take to beat Stockfish video, a lot of you guys mentioned that I should go back and give Stockfish these pieces. So if it's popular enough, I might go back and give Fairy Stockfish martins and see if it comes up with a better idea than mine of just kind of throwing them down the middle of the board. Maybe there's some other depth to this variant that I'm just not seeing. But for the time being, we will continue with our blind advance towards the enemy king. We are definitely losing martins left and right, but weirdly enough, this is somehow kind of effective. Our king is safe, and we've made some amount of vertical progress into the enemy's position, although you could argue we're still on the 4th rank, so technically still on our half of the board. But I'd imagine with a couple more rows of martins, this could be a pretty scary threat to see. But for the time being, our pack is sort of getting thinned out here, and there's not really a lot of advancing opportunities anymore. But we will try. Oh, here comes that pawn promotion. Once this pawn, or once any of these flank pawns start making their way down, you can be pretty certain that Fairy Stockfish thinks there's no threat down the middle of the board anymore. But at least in this 3rd game, it took a little bit longer before it decided that this was the most efficient way to go for the victory. Oh, it's actually decided that it needs 2 pawn promotions. So at least as far as defense goes, this has to be somewhat effective. But again, I can advance them, but there's not really any further that I can go with it. I mean, I guess I can slide up to b5. And it's just going to completely ignore it, because it's promoting here in a second, which will probably be devastating. Because forces this martin back, bishop I'm sure will come in, and nightmares ensue. But I will take my well-earned knight anyways. We do get that check with promotion, we'll slide back and defend. We are in fact put in check by the bishop. I mean, it's kind of cool that I was able to see those ideas. The problem is I'm on the wrong side of that equation, the side of the equation that I don't want to be on. Right, here come all of the king's horses and all of the king's men. Might as well take this spiteful pawn at the end. We get a sacrifice. Removing one of the martins that defends d1, and with that we do get checkmated. I'm going to do us all a big favor here and slap down 2 more rows of martins. Alright, it is a bad day to be Fairy Stockfish with 31 martins staring down into your position. I feel way better about this. In fact, I'm going to play it very similar to Horde, that chess variant with a whole bunch of pawns, but this is even better because martins defend each other in all directions. So I'd never have to be worried about weaknesses on the back rank or, pawns that are falling behind because they even defend each other backwards. Right, we get pawn to e6, and I do not care at all. One of my principles when I play Horde is that if I create a gap, I replace it, and as long as the lead pawn is defended by 2 other pawns, there's literally no reason to break the tension. If you break the tension, you're just disconnecting that piece, and you're allowing the enemy to develop, which is not what you want to do. You want to suppress them. You want to push them back into their own position. They do in fact take, which is totally fine. We'll go ahead and take back. And as you can see, it's still stuck on the 7th and 8th ranks. I'm sure eventually it will try and break free, but my goal is to come in like a swarm of martins that just came from their cave and ooga booga their way across the board and push him back into the 7th and 8th ranks. Right, we do get pawn to c6. Do not care. We'll continue to advance. Takes, again, really not the end of the world. I'm just going to take back. I have more martins than Fairy Stockfish has pieces, so if it continues to make quote-unquote fair trades or even favorable trades, eventually it will run out of fair trades to make and just be left looking down the barrel at, however many martins I have left after those trades. Right, bishop to e7. We'll go ahead and fill up these gaps. d6, fill up these gaps. Because what you do want to do is be totally ready to pounce Even though this all seems kind of slow and redundant, when it does come time to start the breakthrough, you want all of these martins as perfectly close to the king as you can reasonably get them. Right, king shuffles over. I mean, this is, you see the king shuffling over from fairy stockfish on move 7 or whatever we're on. You know you're in a pretty good spot. Right, the queen advances, we'll push. Go ahead and push again. Just going and filling all of these gaps. And now that the gaps are all filled, I think fairy stockfish is literally just making almost like the equivalent of a human waiting move. I'm sure it thinks this is optimizing the position somehow, defending the king, or f6 maybe is a critical square. I don't know, maybe d6 it thinks it's weak. But as far as a human player is concerned, this is basically just waiting around. It is still stuck on the 7th and 8th ranks. I mean, you do have this d6 pawn, but we'll make light work of it right now. Go ahead and break through immediately. Bishop to d7, it doesn't even take my martin, and I will continue to be very principled. If I make a gap, I'm going to go ahead and fill it first. Pawn does in fact take, I'll go ahead and take back. Queen to c7 will defend this martin. Everybody needs to be defended as many times as possible. It's like a spider web of martins. We'll continue to advance. It does in fact take, we'll gladly take back. And the cool thing is, not only do they defend each other like pawns do, but as rooks would as well, or I guess kings more precisely. Pawn advances, we're filling the gap. Bishop goes back. I do have to be a little bit careful because we're kind of thinning out the pack on the queen side. So eventually I might do like a little sneaky maneuver like this and push the king up to f2, or potentially maybe even just over to f1 and over to g1. But for the time being, I'll go ahead and keep filling these gaps. We do get knight to e7. We'll march this martin up to b3. Or actually, we'll march this martin up to b3 and we'll go ahead and start creating a little bit of a gap on the king side for my king to slide over. There's no real huge reason for me to play super defensively, but at the end of the day, I am playing against fairy stockfish, and I really don't want to take any risks and suddenly be bamboozled on the back rank. Right, bishop shuffles over, we'll slide this guy over as well, and then go ahead and just advance this martin to e2, and now I think we can continue our previous attack. Nice, knight to f6, we'll advance, and it's just a slow march down the middle of the board until we eventually consume Stockfish's entire position. Rook to a7, we advance. And, okay, again, the human equivalent of basically a waiting move. We'll go ahead and just keep pushing. Okay, it's not even the human equivalent anymore. Stockfish is literally just waiting around because it probably thinks it's optimized its position, and it really just has nothing better to do than wait for the attack to eventually come down upon its king. Yep, it's literally just waiting. Off we go. It's made a couple more waiting moves here, none that I would even begin to try and explain or understand, but we've made a lot of progress on advancing our martins. Now the question is, how do we actually want to follow through on this? I'm thinking e6 looks like prime real estate. e6 takes, and f7 being weak I think is very promising. I can fill it up with a bunch of martins, the king is right there, eventually maybe the queen has to sacrifice herself, and that just looks very, very promising, so off we go. Nice, we'll go ahead and take back. We're getting very dangerously close to the king here. Knight comes up, and again, we'll just go ahead and play super principle, just fill in the gaps. You can see it is fighting back. It has 1, 2, 3, and 4 eyes on d5, but the problem is it has 4 eyes on d5, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 martins on d5. So I'm still holding very strong here. Right, rook shuffles over, and we'll just go ahead and fill these gaps. It does take, we can take back, no problem. Takes again, sure. It's still not an issue. I think it's just getting to the point where it's seeing a mating threat on f7, and I'm not, which is fine. I have no problem with that. I'll just keep advancing, and then when I'm ready, then I'll make that final push. Right, okay, it's rerouting all of its pieces to function in the defense of the king. I'm gonna slide this guy over. I'm just gonna play this like super duper precisely. Have everything optimized before I launch my attack, and I think we're just about there. Okay, wonderful. This looks pretty spot on. Can I start with f6 or maybe even g6 makes more sense, right? Because f6 has 3 eyes on it at the moment, and I guess I would as well, but it just feels a little sketchier. g6 right away forces a push into the king's position and allows me to use more of these martins, because again, martins only move 1 square at a time, so effectively, pretty much these guys are the only ones currently involved in the attack. Everything else is super awesome reinforcement, but not actually directly involved. So I'm looking to actually break through and create space for more of these martins to get into the attack. Right, it just shuffles the knight over, we'll just keep pushing. It finally takes, we'll take back. Takes, we'll take back again. And now we just push. Okay, the queen shuffles over. There's literally no threat on the back rank. Martin can always just take. And absolute worst case scenario, I can run the king up and just cover myself up in Martins. So I'll go ahead and just keep pushing. The pawn does take. We'll go ahead and take back. There's no way there's not a mating threat here in a couple of moves. Rook comes up. I'll go ahead and take. Wow, it doesn't even take back. It's probably a faster mate if it takes back, but this still looks great. I'll just shuffle the rook, or rather shuffle the rook. Shuffle my Martin over and force it to give up its rook. And it just will not. It refuses to. Okay, we'll advance this Martin. Looking to cover d7. King shuffles over. Okay. I mean, Martin is relentless, especially when he comes in packs of however many I have, 20 or whatever it is at the moment. King continues to run, but there is no escape. We've got this Martin on c6 doing all the heavy lifting, covering up all of the king's escape squares. So it's pretty much running out of options here. Queen to b7. Yep. Has to give up its most valuable piece. The king does in fact take back, and now we just swarm the enemy. It's trying to escape through d8 again, so we'll have f6 Martin come down to e7, cover d8. Literally just beating up on the world's strongest engine by way of Martins right now. Nice, we'll continue to advance. They all defend each other. We'll go ahead and target this rook. It does come down to b7, we'll go ahead and take. And this is more so a formality than a question of whether or not this is winnable. Nice, covering up all of the king's escape squares, we'll advance this Martin to b7, and with that, we do defeat Fairy Stockfish with 31 Martins. If you guys did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Let me know down below if there are any other fairy pieces that you'd like me to try, or any of your pieces of your own invention that you'd like me to create, and I will play against them with, or rather, I will play against Fairy Stockfish with them. Also, let me know down below if you're actually interested in seeing me give Fairy Stockfish the pieces that I've used, including Martins, and seeing if it can come up with any new strategies. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.